Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. The new book by Valoree Althoff is an exploration of faith and divine encounters. The title of the book is I Met the Virgin Mary in Lourdes. And we're going to be talking all about this. Valoree is right here with me now at the show. Valoree, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. It's great to be speaking with you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm curious about I Met the Virgin Mary in Lourdes. What's the story that you've written here?
Yeah, so this all began back in 2012. I went on a pilgrimage with our parish, and unfortunately the father couldn't go due to medical reasons. So our parish made up about half of the trip, and I ended up going just with the group. I was probably in my early 30s, and so it was just a trip to Vatican and Italy and then over to Lourdes and see where St. Bernadette had met the 18 apparitions with Mary. So yeah, it all began there. So I've been to another pilgrimage with my mom just in 2023 with the other parish in town here in Farmington, New Mexico, and we went to Ireland. So planning to be booked too. So yeah, all of these, bringing the books of the apparitions of Mary to the children.
What kinds of readers did you have in mind for this?
Yeah, just when I did some research, that there really wasn't any books with Bernadette, and since it was my first pilgrimage, I wanted to start there. So when I did my research, just quick on Amazon, there was about like a 60-page book for about sixth grade reading, and then high school that was maybe about 100 pages about the apparitions and Lourdes and the experience with Bernadette and her life. And I really felt that really wasn't a children's book. So growing up Catholic, my mom is a convert and my dad was Catholic, but he was always gone working. He worked in the oil field, and so he was gone a lot. And even when I went through confirmation and picking my patron saints, we really didn't have any books. So I had no idea how to pick a saint or where to start. And, you know, the internet in the 90s was kind of new, so I didn't really know how to do the research. And my friend's like, oh, I have a book. So just kind of having what I didn't have and having those faith-based religious books and bringing it to children and bringing all the apparitions that Mary's appeared to the children.
What does your writing background look like, Valoree? Do you have a lot of experience in this?
Really, no. I'm a dental hygienist and just going to the pilgrimages. So this was kind of, I jokingly, with full appreciation and love, feel like this was divinely inspired because I felt really yelled at by my guardian angel and my guides because in one weekend, I saw about 12 commercials to write your book, write your book, write your book. And every single one was a different company. Every single one was a different company. So I wrote a few down, and the one that really spoke to me was Christian Faith, and that's what got me thinking, because it all started with a dental idea for a children's book, a little twist on the tooth fairy that I still plan to eventually hopefully do if everything is successful with this series. So I hope to eventually do that. But so I wrote a couple of the companies down on my phone. I put it down and I saw about 2 more commercials. So I literally looked up at the ceiling and I said, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'll get my computer. So I jokingly, with complete love and appreciation, say that I was divinely yelled at.
So once you got started on this, you wrote the book, you got it published through the publishing process and everything. Was this a long journey overall for you?
Yes and no. I felt like I wrote it so fast that I felt like I had to sit on it a little bit and kind of mull over the words a little bit. And it was accepted right away. And when the agent said it was accepted, she's like, are you excited? This is amazing. And I was like, well, of course it's accepted. You know, just in my heart, I just knew that it was going to happen. And so the illustration process was a lot of fun. And then I think from the illustration process, it kind of felt like it slowed down. But really the process has been very quick, very easy. I've loved working with the team. It's been a lot of growth and a lot of knowledge and experience, but a lot of fun.
Well, what a wonderful book. Again, the title is I Met the Virgin Mary in Lourdes. This is written by Valoree Althoff and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Really available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Valoree, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about this book. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My Guiding Star. It's the name of the new book. It just came out, written by Richard J. Mihans II. And Richard is here with me, and we get to talk all about the book. Richard, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm excited to have you here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Corey. Delighted to be here as well. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, can you tell me all about what you've written about in My Guiding Star?
Sure. But before we dive in, I want to plant a little seed for later. My Guiding Star is a heartfelt children's book about a boy named Richie and his deep connection with his grandmother. She teaches him to look to the stars for guidance, especially in tough times, and the stories about love, loss, and connections that never fade. And ultimately, it's a story about my grandmother.
What sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
Really, this is a book for children through adults. So anyone who has experienced the loss of a loved one or someone that's no longer with them, I think will resonate well with readers of all ages.
What does your writing background look like, Richard? Do you have a lot of experience in this?
Well, I'm a professor of education, so technically my writing is usually very research-focused. So I've published in that arena, but I've always wanted to write a children's book. It's a story that actually began in the mid-'90s when I was in teacher prep school, and I put it aside. And so then I had an opportunity. I was teaching a class, children and adolescent literature, and I tasked my students, who would all be teachers, to write a children's book. I figured if we were going to analyze children's literature, we should try to write one. Long story short, I got a publisher that agreed to read their work, and 6 of my students got an offer. And as I was talking to my students about writer's block in one class, I told them this story about how I had struggled with writing my own children's book. And they stopped me and they said, wait a minute, you have a rough draft of a children's book? And I said, yes. And they said, you should be writing right alongside us, which I did. And so together, spring of 2023, we wrote these manuscripts and submitted them, not really sure what would happen. And here we are today.
Now, a really big part of books like this are the illustrations. So was that a smooth process for you?
You know, it's interesting. So if you ask my mother, who's 84, and this is a story about her mother, the illustrations just never quite got it correct. It's easy to analyze the people and the events. And once I learned how to really work effectively with the illustrator and really describe what it was I was hoping for, what the concept was, or in a particular scene, what I was hoping to convey, once we got that in sync, it was harmony. And so in the end, I'm very pleased with the illustrations.
I could only imagine what was going through your head whenever your first copy came in and you were actually holding it for that first time, Richard. What was that like for you?
Surreal. Getting that first copy and flipping through the pages, I was so excited. I couldn't believe that a dream of mine had been realized, that this would actually be a tangible item that people could purchase and keep in their homes and pass down, and so many emotions, but mostly excitement and pride.
Well, as we wrap up here tonight, Richard, a lot of our listeners are authors who are just starting out. So do you have anything maybe in the way of advice that you could throw out there for them?
Oh, absolutely. So I think the first bit of advice I have for them is don't wait for the perfect time. Just start writing. You know, life is never going to present us with this perfect time. So just start getting the ideas down. Second advice is editing is not the enemy. It's part of the process, so embrace it. I think Lillian Hellman once said, if you wish to write, then write. And if you're going to write anything good, you have to feel it. So I think that if you believe in your story, others will too. And it's worth telling.
I think readers are really going to love this book. Again, it's titled My Guiding Star. It's written by Richard J. Mihans II, and it's published by Covenant Books. So grab it up at places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Richard, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you again.
The new book by S.Y. Moss is a memoir of healing and transformation. It's titled Personal Story, Dropping My Stones for Diamonds. And the author, Sonia, is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to be talking all about it. Sonia, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm curious to hear all about Personal Story, Dropping My Stones for Diamonds, Sonia. Can you tell me what readers are going to be in for here?
Yes, they're going to be in for, first of all, kind of like an emotional roller coaster, but it's definitely a life-changing story that is really my own. And they can expect healing. They can expect some kind of insight on how I allow God to just take me into a place of healing where it brought me to the point of where I am now. It allowed me to forgive. It allowed me to just learn to love and move forward in life no matter what had come my way.
Well, that's a great story, Sonia. What kinds of readers do you think would be into this the most?
People who have experienced some type of abuse or sexual assault, people who have experienced suicide attempts or suicidal thoughts, people who have need of mending their own life. So those are the type of people that I hope that this book will fall into their hands and to help them understand that whatever has happened to them in life, it's not their fault.
So what was that spark that really got you started on working on this?
Well, for one thing, I will say this. As I was experiencing life, I just realized that God was calling me to write because I love writing poems. I love just writing little stories. But I realized that I had a story of my own. And the more I ran into different people who had been abused and had gone through suicide attempts, or someone in their lives had actually committed suicide and they were in need of healing, and not only healing, but forgiveness of themselves, I realized that, hey, you know what? I need to write this book so that people can know and understand that there is a loving God, there is a forgiving God, there's a God who is a father, because I didn't have a great relationship with my father. So when you read the book, you kind of get an understanding of why I so desperately needed a father in my life and couldn't get that right until I ran into Father God.
So what does your writing background look like, Sonia? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
Well, actually, this is my first book that I have released. I have books that I have started writing, but I've never had anything published. They're all sitting on my computer. I've written, like poems for myself or poems that I use to encourage other people. Like personally, I would write something for someone and just, give it to them.
So being that it was your first book, was this a long journey that you were on overall?
Oh, my gosh, yes, because I believe at the age of 21 is when I gave my life to Christ. I just remember, though, in my mid to late 20s, God not only gave me the title of the book, but he also gave me the cover. So what you see is what God had already envisioned. And so I knew that I was going to write this book, but it took, I think, I'm in my 60s now, so it took quite a while because the book also provided healing for me. I would write, and sometimes it would be so painful I would have to put the book down because I wasn't ready to face a lot of the things that I had encountered. So it took a good little while, and I really prayed and asked God to allow this book mostly to be healing for those who are in need of healing in whatever way they need the healing.
Well, what a great story of healing and hope. I think so many readers are going to be inspired and touched by this. Again, the name of the book is Personal Story, Dropping My Stones for Diamonds. It's written by S.Y. Moss, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and really you can get it about everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Sonia, it's been so wonderful talking with you tonight and learning about your story. Thanks again.
Thank you for inviting me to do this story. I really appreciate it.
Joining me right now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be speaking with author Rhonda Mantooth Craig. Rhonda, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Rhonda, congratulations. You have a new book out. It's titled Rewire Your Brain, When Science and God's Word Agree. So, Rhonda, can you tell me all about this?
Well, I was writing declarations for myself, and when I looked up the word declaration and what that really meant, I stumbled across all the information that's on the internet about neuroplasticity. And I realized that, for those of us who've been reading the Bible, and our Bible thumpers, I guess you'd call me, have known all along that the scriptures are just full of positive neuroplasticity, encouragement to rewire your brain. So on the back of the book, it says that I was struck by how scientific study of positive neuroplasticity, rewiring your brain, is indeed proving and agreeing with Bible truths that believers embrace and have always known. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. So in this book, I explored my everyday experiences, life lessons, and scriptures to connect the science of positive neuroplasticity with the scriptures. My intimate conversations, I guess, with God were the inspiration for these. And they were really just for me. I had no intentions of sharing them, but alas, I finally did.
What sorts of readers do you think would be really into this?
Probably Christian readers. If they see the words science and God's word agree, I think probably they're going to be turned off if they're not believers. I really don't know. I am not a scientist and I'm not in the medical community. What I'm connecting the dots to are the things that people can explore on their own about neuroplasticity, because it's well established in the science community now about the power of positive thinking and what it does to the body.
So what does your writing background look like, Rhonda? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
No, I'm a teacher. I'm a retired educator of early childhood, and I did write a reading program for my children to teach them to read in a fun way, but I have no other experience other than that.
So once you sat down, you got started on this, and clear up through when it was published and out there, was this a long period of time?
Actually, it was. I didn't sit down to just write the book. Like I said, I would record the daily declarations that I would make to myself and the messages that I received through my spirit of how to rewire, and I recorded those. And then they were just for me. Well, then I started sharing them with my family. And after I shared them with my family, I thought, well, I'll share some of these with my friends. So that's what I did. And eventually I had a little Facebook page called Rhonda's Rewires. And it was over a course of several years. But my grandson-in-law, he said to me one day, he said, I don't want these in a text. I don't want these in an email. I want these on paper so I can have them. So I gathered them up and kind of put them in a book form and copied them and gave them to him for Christmas, for a Christmas present. That's all I intended to do with them. But then, after I had done that, in April, I was just urged to seek a publisher. Covenant Books came up, and the doors just opened, and that was the manuscript that I used, was what I had given to him for Christmas. And it was just a collection of all of those messages that I had written over a course of several years.
Whenever that first copy finally came in, you were holding this for the first time, Rhonda. What was that like for you?
I couldn't believe that, Here it was, and I was astounded that it was as much as it was, that it was as big. I kind of envisioned it as not very big, but 200 and some pages. So, yeah, I was really taken aback.
Rhonda, thinking about the publishing end of things, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Editing that. Editing, because, you tend to, when you're editing it yourself, you tend to fill in the gaps. And I missed several. That was the most challenging part to me, was the editing process. I have to tell you, I'm in the process of making an audiobook. Today, I just finished the 5th chapter. There's 7 chapters, so we should finish that audiobook probably toward the end of the week.
Again, the title is Rewire Your Brain, When Science and God's Word Agree. It's written by Rhonda Mantooth Craig, published by Covenant Books. Pick it up at places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Rhonda, how nice it's been to talk with you here tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Corey, it's been a delight. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to get to share with the folks about this book. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sitting down with me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'd like to welcome author Stephen Walters. Stephen, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Welcome. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Stephen, you've just released a really interesting book. It's titled Torah, First 5 Writings of Moses. So can you tell me all about it?
It was a lot of work. It was 23 years in research and study of ancient Hebrew, the Dead Sea Scrolls. I found the oldest source and just stuck to it. I've been researching that and trying to get it back to the actual roots of the words, back to the factual basis of the ancient Hebrew language.
Yeah, it's quite an undertaking. What sparked this? What gave you the idea to start this?
Well, I started out in churches, hearing scriptures about, Jesus' parable of the sower in particular. Definitely started calling me back to those words, and so I started pursuing and looking and asking for more, and eventually it led me to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's where I started.
Would you say this is written more for a scholarly type of audience or more of a general audience?
It is for both. I did do this for the most critical critic too in mind, so if they were skeptical of my work, they're definitely more, I'm inviting everybody to go ahead and check it out.
What does your writing background look like, Stephen? Do you have a lot of experience doing this kind of thing?
Not at all. This is my first book. Actually, it's the first time. So the work took so long that I didn't even know if I was even going to get to the book process. But things happened that did kind of spark me having to step up and get something done. So glad we got something.
Yeah, there's the writing of the book, and then you take that manuscript off, and you hooked up with Newman Springs Publishing, started that whole process. Stephen, what was the most challenging part of that publishing end of things for you?
Probably just the back and forth process of trying to get that final editing done. That was probably the most brutal. But I do love my publishers, man. They were great. They were patient and just kept right on working at it and making it. They made a nice work. We did a good job. I think we got something to be proud of, for sure.
Well, Stephen, you're a published author now. What's the most rewarding aspect of all of it for you?
So far, the most rewarding part's been at least reaching the goal was definitely very satisfying. Getting something done where I could look at it was probably been the most rewarding, knowing that I had reached that goal. That was a huge little burden off of me.
This thing was over 2 decades in the making, and then finally that day came, and you got the finished product. You're holding it in your hands, Stephen. What was that like?
That was a great feeling. I finally felt like I accomplished some goals and was reaching, making it a reality was definitely a big deal. Seeing it in my hand was huge. I was glad to finally get something that I could show for all the hard work. That was huge.
Looking down the road, do you see yourself writing, maybe publishing more?
Yes. I was originally working on the whole Old Testament, so I do have a lot of work going on. But I am going to be coming out with more, probably like a Psalms and Proverbs and some, probably some Kings and things. But eventually I will have the whole Old Testament is the goal.
A lot of our listeners are authors who are just starting out, and this can be quite the learning experience doing this all for the first time. So is there anything you might have learned along the way that you could toss out there as some advice?
Make yourself do it, man. Get it done, because that probably is the hardest thing for writers, because you really got to be motivated on your own to make it happen. So I would just say stick to that dream, those challenges, and not give up.
And this is quite the undertaking, and to do something like this all by yourself, it can be really difficult. Did you have people around you that knew you were doing this, and they could maybe kind of keep you motivated and encouraged along the way?
Honestly, it's been a rough road. The circumstances that happened, but I didn't really know what to do with all the emotions and stuff, so I threw it all into that work, trying to just get it all done. But yeah, it just made me want to get this out there a little more.
Well, this is definitely an important book. Again, it's titled Torah, First 5 Writings of Moses. This is written by Stephen Walters, and it's published by Newman Springs Publishing, so find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes,
also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Stephen, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about this. It was really nice talking.
All right, thank you.
I'm looking at the new book right now by Karma Wiederrick. It's titled Flight 614, and it's a tale of survival, self-discovery, and resilience. And that's what we're going to be talking about right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Karma is here with me. Karma, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining me tonight.
Happy to be here.
Karma, can you tell me all about Flight 614 and what readers are going to be getting into here?
Oh, it's a modern tale, kind of made for this generation that is struggling with identity and definitions of, self and love and kind of how to build and have relationships, healthy relationships in their life. And so I just really wanted to explore that with a young character in a fantastical environment.
What sort of a reading audience did you have in mind?
Kind of a young audience, this young generation that is really struggling with identity and sexuality and what is love. And love is not just physicality. I mean, there's so much more involved in really, truly loving someone. And so much of this generation is thinking it's either sex or it's, such a deep self-sacrifice. It's to the point of losing yourself or not even knowing who you really are. And so I kind of wanted to explore that as well as put it in an environment that was unfamiliar to most Americans. So I set it in Indonesia and just used this plane crash to explore with the survivors kind of those kind of feelings and understanding their relationships.
So how did this come about, Karma? What gave you the idea to write the story?
Well, I raised disabled adults, and so even though my children are adults and grown and gone, I deal with a lot of these 15 to 22-year-olds that don't even know who they are, what gender they are, what love really is, how to make and maintain relationships. So much is based on social media and looking at your phone and not really talking to people face to face. And so part of that inspired it as well as just the interesting flora and fauna of Indonesia, which is so different from here in the U.S. So I kind of mixed those two things together to kind of explore the environment and the characters and then just kind of this journey of self-discovery.
So when it comes to writing and publishing and all of that, Karma, are you new to all this or do you have experience in it?
I've published 3 books, self-published on Amazon. So I have a fantasy, a historic fiction, and a sci-fi all on there. And then I got the opportunity to have this one professionally published, and I'm really excited about that. And I want to continue to work with publishers kind of going forward, and it would be great to have, bigger and bigger companies eventually take me on. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the exploration.
When you think about the writing of the book and that publishing process, all in all, was this a long journey that you were on?
Yeah, I wrote the book in about 3 months, and then finding a publisher, working with a publisher, and the editing process, and building a cover, and all of that has been almost a year. So it's a long journey to go from the manuscript you have to something that's a professional work and ready to be out there for everyone to see.
So once you hooked up with Christian Faith Publishing, you started that publishing process. What do you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Patience. I don't have good patience at all. And so I'm waiting for the next phase. It's come on, I wrote it in 3 months. Surely we can edit it in less than that. But no, it's a process. But I was really appreciative of that because there's even one part where none of my proofreaders or pre-readers caught that actually accidentally put Waego, Philippines instead of Waego, Indonesia. And Christian Faith caught it. I was like, okay, I don't like to make those kinds of mistakes, so it was worth the wait for them to do all the research and really know what I'm talking about, and to also, it's not just grammar and spelling. There's a lot more to editing than just that.
Absolutely. So a lot of time, a lot of hard work went into it, but then it finally paid off. The finished product, you're holding that first copy in your hands of Flight 614. Karma, what was that like?
It was awesome. I love the glossy cover. I love kind of the dark feel, because the edges are really dark and you can barely see the guy's boots. And then here's this girl in the light. But in reality, the opposite is true because she's the one who's lost in this internal darkness and they are in the light and she just doesn't know it yet.
Well, what a great message this book has. I think readers are going to love this. Again, the title of the book is Flight 614. It's written by Karma Wiederrick. and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So really, you can get it just about everywhere: Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Karma, it's been fantastic talking with you tonight, learning all about 614. Thanks again for being on the show with me.
I appreciate your time.
The new book by Michael J. Seminetta III is a memoir that presents readers with an unfiltered exploration of addiction, recovery, and hope. The name of the book is Ripple, and Michael is here with me now at the show, and we get to talk all about it. Michael, welcome. I appreciate you joining me.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate talking with you tonight, Michael. Can you tell me about Ripple and what readers are going to be getting into here?
So, I am a recovering heroin addict. I've been clean for a number of years now. But after I got clean and sober, I looked around me and there's a horrible problem right now with fentanyl overdoses. Over 100,000 people are dying a year from drug overdoses. So, it's kind of a contribution. I could have, turned and just kept going with my life, but instead I have a lot of wisdom and knowledge. I've been through it all. I've experienced just about everything, a sinister drug habit could conjure up. So I just wanted to share my experience and what I went through and how I beat it to help other people, going through the same thing that I went through.
Oh, congratulations on your recovery, Michael. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
So what does your writing background look like? Is this all new territory for you?
It is. I'm not a writer. I never went to school for it. It's just something that, God touched me with, and I just embarked on it about 10 years ago. And then I put it down, and, I had a couple relapses throughout the course of about a decade. I would keep going back to it, but a couple of years ago, I took it seriously when I was finally clean and sober, and I put a lot of effort into it. It's actually two parts. The first part is an autobiography, and then the second part is kind of a self-help book for addicts, just to kind of guide them through what I went through and my experiences. I'm actually in the process of writing another book right now that's more geared and directed towards moms and dads and family members who have a loved one or a child who's going through a substance abuse disorder. And, a lot of people, they really don't understand what's going on. So, I just wanted to give my insights and what my family went through with it.
So once you had your manuscript all ready and you hooked up with Covenant Books, you started that publishing process. Michael, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing end?
As far as the process, I wouldn't say anything was too challenging. They were great at Covenant. They helped me through the whole process. I would say writing it and actually deciding to get it published, because I rewrote it so many times. I would finish it and then I would reread it and be like, you know what, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And so I'm glad I had patience and I got to publish exactly what I wanted to say. Because it's an important issue nowadays.
Absolutely.
A long time ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't affecting everybody the way it is today. And now it's actually uncommon to meet someone nowadays who doesn't know of someone who's going through a substance abuse problem. So, when the book was published back in September, I actually did a cross-country bicycle trip. Right after the book was released, I did a cross-country bicycle trip to promote substance abuse awareness. September 7th, I started in Chicago, and I went all the way to Santa Monica Pier in Southern California. It took me 33 days. It was about 2,400 miles, and I stopped along recovery centers, Salvation Army. So I stopped at a lot of treatment homes, on my route, and just, did some public speaking and tried to inspire some of the residents and, show them that there's a better way. And it was pretty cool. But as I was saying, I'm not a writer, though. I graduated high school, but I never went to college. I would say trial and error. I just, I would write it, reread it, rewrite it again. And that was kind of my process. On a pen and paper. I didn't use a computer, so everything I have thousands of sheets of paper covered in writing.
Well, what a fantastic message in this book. It is definitely needed out there. It's titled Ripple. It's written by Michael J. Seminetta III, and it's published by Covenant Books. So really find it anywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Michael, it's been really great talking with you and learning about your story and all about Ripple. Thanks again for talking with me tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it a lot.
Author Loretta Haynes has just published a fun and interactive children's story. The book's titled Mystery Socks. And we'll be finding out all about this. Loretta is here with me now. Loretta, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm really curious about Mystery Socks, Loretta. Can you tell me all about it?
Yes, it really came to me. It's really about my grandchildren and their friends. And I thought about the fact that, when we put our socks in a dryer, it's always one comes out, but the other one you never find most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It also came about when I work with preschoolers. And so we had a sock party. So all of us had to come up with a story. So immediately I just made up this, I thought about my grandkids because when I wash their clothes, that one sock I have a hard time finding. So I told a story and the kids were so involved in it, and we did activities with it. It's really a story really dealing with my grandson who becomes a superhero. His name is Buddy. And his parents come and they ask him, they can't find that one sock anywhere. And he's going through so many things about, I could not have lost them. I can't. So I got in more of a rhyming situation. And so when the story really gets interesting, it's more like a mystery, because no one can find the socks. No one can have any idea. So he goes around and asks all of his friends. And I involved my nephew who has special needs, but he's the policeman in the story. And so he goes to Policeman Addison, ask where the sock could be. And they can't find it anywhere. And he went to the neighbors, and it was just a whole mystery throughout the house, outside. They were by the trees. They were digging. And then he was so distraught. He said, I'm going to become the super sock finder, the best in the land. He said, I'm going to find this sock. This is getting out of hand. So that part is in there, too. And when he realized he couldn't find, he was crying. He was talking to the dog named Blanco, and he's just crying. Then all of a sudden he hears something calling his name. So he goes down to the dryer, and the socks are having a party. So the socks are having a party, and he said, and the question is, he doesn't know how they all came about, but it didn't matter. They were all there. So it's a really fun, interactive story. I've read it to my preschoolers. I've read it to other people, and they really love it. And the fact that it involves them. So suggest when I read the stories and I get a Sherlock Holmes hat and the monocle or magnifying glass, because we are all going to be involved finding these socks. And then my grandson loved it when he became the superhero in the story. So it's a vivid picture of him and his sister and his mom and dad and then his friends. And I have a lot of children that are involved in it. I have special needs. They're on crutches, they're in wheelchairs, but they're all involved as a community to find those socks. So that's basically what the story is about.
What does your writing background look like, Loretta? Are you experienced in doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, I wrote another children's, but my first one was called 10 Little Pennies for Some Bubble Gum. People say I'm a very good storyteller, and as long as I can get you involved, I figure I'm okay. So I wrote the story, and it was to the tune of 10 Little Pennies for Some Bubble Gum. And the reason why it's a tune, because, I did my research, and just like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, anybody can sing it. And I also tell the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears with a little bit of a twist, where children really get involved in helping Goldilocks. It's not the normal way you tell the story. It's a fun way. And I make the sounds and they hear Papa Bear, Mama Bear. All my stories is vivid so that children can really, really understand and be part of the story.
Well, this book sounds like it's so much fun. I think readers are really going to love this. Again, it's titled Mystery Socks. It's written by Loretta Haynes, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing and really available pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Loretta, it's been so wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about Mystery Socks. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The book I'm holding right now shares the author's inspiring journey of faith, art, and overcoming adversity. This is a book written by Benjamin Richard Addison. It's titled A Bigger Picture, Memoir of a Military Artist. And Benjamin is sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about it. Benjamin, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me all about A Bigger Picture and what readers are going to find here?
I was inspired to write about my journey in the military to become an artist for the Navy. And during that journey, my mind opened up. My faith became strengthened through the challenges that I faced. And I felt that it was good if I could capture those experiences and share them with others.
And what gave you the idea to publish your story?
I saw a meme on Facebook that said, be a light for others, because you never know when something you've been through may be of help to someone else. And that inspired me to share my story.
So when you think of the kind of readers that would really be into this, Benjamin, who do you think that'd be?
I think anyone who's been a victim of difficult childhood and the challenges that can be found in broken homes and the struggles of growing up. And so young adults, adolescents who are looking to maybe decide what they want to do with their lives. And for me, there was a pinnacle moment when my son was born. I was a teenager, and it really made me grow up and mature and try to decide, what am I going to do? How am I going to provide for my son and my family? And it led to me enlisting into the military, and that started the whole journey. So anyone who's interested in a military career or what the Navy has to offer, adults who are interested in the challenges and adventures of an overseas deployments, and people who are interested in the arts might also find this book interesting.
Well, Benjamin, do you have experience in this whole writing, publishing thing, or are you fairly new to it all?
I'm brand new to it. I elected to enroll myself into an educational program through Liberty University for a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. And through those exercises and for my thesis, I had the opportunity to sort of sharpen writing skills that I hadn't used since high school or, for my bachelor's degree earlier on. Other than professional writing at work, I'm brand new to publishing a book. And so it was the benefit that I received from that education and the guidance of those professors that encouraged me to go ahead and get published.
So being it's your first one, was this a long journey, the writing, the publishing, everything?
I'd say it was maybe a 2-year journey because of the educational program and the tempo of the courses with the exercises and assignments I was given. But when I completed the educational program, from the moment I scratched my head and said, I'm going to put pen to paper and write this book, I'd say it was a fairly short journey, maybe only 6 months. And I went from ideas in my head to the book at the publishing company.
Yeah, so you hooked up with Hawes & Jenkins and you started that publishing process, and there's a lot involved in that. What did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
I think the most challenging part was for me to realize the intricacies that go into publishing a book, especially on the side of the publishing company. There's so many professionals, editors, artists to help with the cover design, the folks who sort of guide you through the process. So it was a little intimidating at first because I was new to it, but the professionals at Hawes & Jenkins really sort of just led me through like a shepherd and guided me through the whole process to where it opened my eyes up to just how many people go into publishing a book. It's a real team effort. And of course, I couldn't have done it without the support of my family as well.
So it's official. You're a published author now, Benjamin. When you think about that, what's the most rewarding part of it all for you?
The most rewarding part of being a published author for me is when I get feedback from readers who've taken the time to read the book and write a review. And it opens my mind up and my eyes to the different lenses with which people see my book. And I get new perspectives on my own story.
It's titled A Bigger Picture, Memoir of a Military Artist. This is written by Benjamin Richard Addison, published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing, and really available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Benjamin, thank you so much again for coming on the show and telling me all about this. It was really great talking with you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Right now, here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm sitting down with author Deborah Lechmanski. Deborah, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Just wanted to congratulate you. You have a new book out. It's titled Growing Up on Shelter Island, Happy and Sad Times. Deborah, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
Well, basically, it was started off being about my dad, and I was just jotting down notes and started getting writer's cramp putting it in a notebook. So I said, this is crazy, and I transferred it over onto the computer, and it grew from there.
What made you decide to seek publishing for it?
Because I got so involved, it became my life, basically, of growing up here on the island. So I started looking in on Google and trying to find a publisher and went from there.
So what kind of a reading audience, Deborah, do you think would be into this the most?
I would say it's tragic times, two major in the book, and happy times of growing up on a farm with my grandfather, and my life until I have my grandchildren.
When it comes to writing, publishing, and everything, Deborah, is this your first time at it, or are you experienced in it?
First time.
Congratulations. Being it was your first book, was this a long journey for you?
Yeah, it started in 2016, and I finished it in 2024.
So once you had that manuscript all ready to go and you hooked up with Christian Faith Publishing, you start that publishing process, and there's an awful lot involved there. Deborah, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing end?
It's getting all the information straight. I mean, being that I've never done it before, it was all new, and I had to double check and make sure I knew what was going on.
And then finally, after all that hard work, you get your first copy in, and it's a real thing. You're holding this in your hands, Deborah. Well, what kind of a moment was that like for you?
Unbelievable. It really was. And I had somebody read it. It had to do with my father's situation with the ferry boat on Shelter Island. And he called me after he read the book, and he says it brought back memories to him about his grandchildren when they used to go to a different farm and work with the animals and do stuff. He says that I sort of forgot about all that. So my story brought back his memories of his grandchildren and children.
What are the chances we might see another book from you here down the road?
People are prompting me to do so, but I don't know. It could be a fictional one if I did do another one, because I have a great imagination for thinking of strange things. So I might do a fictional if I do another one of my thoughts and stuff that I have. I figured, why not? If I do it, that's what I'm going to go that way.
So while you were writing this, was writer's block, anything like that, ever an issue for you?
No, because I started off by putting down what I wanted to write about, and then I just used that as a guide and just grew. It just took off.
Well, Deborah, this is a lot of work, and doing it all by yourself, that can be a lot. So do you have people around you in your life that maybe can keep you inspired and motivated as you go?
Well, I gave the first couple chapters when I did it to my husband, and he read it, and he says, "You did all of this?" I said, yeah. So that's a part of my life that he didn't even know about, how I grew up and worked with the chickens, worked with the cows, worked with everything. It was a totally different life than he saw me as, and he couldn't believe that I had done all this stuff.
Well, Deborah, we have a lot of aspiring authors who are listening right now. Do you have maybe some advice that you could throw out there for them?
It's sort of hard for me to go there because this is a really strange thing. I don't read books. And it's like, how did I write a book if I don't read books? But I did it, so I guess it worked.
It's titled Growing Up on Shelter Island, Happy and Sad Times. It's written by Deborah Lechmanski and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling me all about this. It was really great talking with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.